Good morning, everyone. Oh, okay. Good morning, everyone. Here we are in the last, probably what is the last part of our day today, which is about the Astral Ascension ceremony, which is saying goodbye. So let's start with a prayer. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Friend, Beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, Beloved Master, Paramhansa Yogananda, Saints of all religions, dearest friend Swami Kriyananda, humbly we bow to you all. Help us to lift our consciousness above the confusion of this world, to see clearly and simply that you are always with us. Help us to know how much we are loved, because in the love that you shower upon us, we will find both the fulfillment and the security that our hearts are always seeking. We are your children. Open us to your love, guide us and bless us. Om, peace. Amen. Before I start with what I really am going to talk about today, I got one more email, and it was a good question about the organ donation issue. It's because Swamiji had recommended against organ donation. For those of you who are just picking this recording up randomly, the two that came before it are all about that issue. Swamiji recommended against donating your organs because they have to be taken out of your body so quickly after the body is pronounced dead, which means that the soul has barely exited from the body and you may be hovering around, not quite clear yet what's happened to you, where you are, what you need. And Swami said if doctors rush in and start hacking to pieces, which they will, and they'll do it very simply because they're in a hurry and there's no living being to respect inside the body anymore. If the soul is still in any way in relationship to that, which it very likely can be because the transition is still going on, Swami said it can be very disconcerting for the exited soul, and therefore he felt it was not spiritually a good thing. There was too much at stake. You don't want to be drawn back violently to concern about that body just at the time when you're trying to leave it behind. So then someone asked me the question about donating your body to science. And I could be wrong in this, but I have the feeling that that's what Swami's father did, but I don't really know that for sure. It's the kind of thing his father would have done. And a mutual friend of ours had a very unusual disease, a very serious devotee, had a very unusual disease which took her life relatively prematurely. And she donated her body to science in the hope that people could figure out and help others with that disease. To me, it falls in a different category because Swamiji wasn't concerned about what happens to your body. What he was concerned about was the transition from exiting your body to adjusting to the astral world. So nobody rushes in with a scalpel a minute after you die if you've donated your body to science. It's packaged up in some way and taken off, and then sometime later something happens to it. Well, that's what happens to all bodies. Sometime later something happens to it. It's consigned to the flames, or it's put in a coffin and it's put into the ground. So giving it to science, yes, because it may be autopsied and dissected and all those different things that could happen. It has a character to it. But Swami never spoke of the disposition of the body. What he spoke about was the sensitivity of that transition. So we have to sort of, from what he didn't say and what he did say, we have to reason out what might be sensible. So I just wanted to add that. Now, when we've always had a tradition at Ananda, of course, as all spiritual groups do, that you have some kind of rituals around death. It's quite appropriate that you should have rituals around death. You're doing it for two sides. You're doing it because the people who have lost their loved ones, it's especially if it comes suddenly, but it really doesn't matter when it comes. The absolute finality of it, the strange mystery of it, the feeling of connectedness to the person, but there's no body anymore, there's no voice, there's no eyes. It's just so confusing and can be so heartbreaking. And that heartbreak, as I've talked about earlier, can also be a weight on the soul of the person who's gone forward. We also have complicated, often feelings of guilt and remembrance, and all of those are issues. So every culture has developed rituals around death to help those who are on this side process it properly, come to the right understanding, and move forward in the right way. And because we know that consciousness is eternal and can't be destroyed merely because the brain has died, that the person that you love, their complete self, their personality in that body may have shifted slightly. I mean, the way they express their consciousness through that body may have shifted, but the essence of what we loved is still there, still connected to us by the subtle bonds of spirit and of true love, and also is just as much a friend in need of our friendship as they have ever been. So we also have a ritual that is designed to help them in the transition that they need, to really help them understand, in some cases, where they are and what they need to do. And so we're really literally addressing the soul and giving the soul good advice. And we're also demonstrating our continuing love of the right kind in an effort to help that person transition. So everybody gets to benefit. And Master wrote what he called an astral ascension, ascending into the astral world, an astral ascension ceremony that we used for a long time. I don't have a copy in front of me, and I no longer have a clear recollection of what the details of that were. But when we became established as a community at Ananda and reached the point where we were beginning to have deaths within the community, the first person within Ananda to die was also the oldest person, and he died a very noble, very conscious death at a very appropriate time. But after that, other things began to happen, and we began, friends were passing. And Swamiji felt that something more personal was needed for the context of Ananda. That Masters was more, and this is just, I'm remembering without having it in front of me, it was more impersonal, it was more abstract. And Swami felt something friend to friend was more appropriate for the community. So he wrote what we tend to call the Astral Ascension ceremony, but it's not really the ceremony, it's the prayer, the extended prayer that we recite to say goodbye and fare thee well. Fare thee well is really exactly what we're asking, what we're wanting for the person. Go on in good grace and into the light of God, and putting ourselves in right relationship to it. So that's what we've always used. And you should know in hearing this, in fact, what I'll do is I'll have it posted with this recording. That it's not limited. It's not a ministerial it's not a ministerial ceremony that can only be administered by certain authorized people. It's a beautiful prayer that anyone can use. And as you see, as we'll go through it, if anybody in your world passes away, this is a good thing for you to read to them. Read on your own, read to their recently absented body. Whatever you might feel, you can use this in any way that you feel to, and it's designed exactly for that purpose. I've also found from experience that I've taken this prayer into circumstances where people have no relationship to Master, to Swamiji, to Ananda. And without exception, people find that it articulates so powerfully what you want to say to your loved one. It assumes, of course, a conscious reality on the part of your loved one, which has to be there. But even people who don't fully believe in such a thing are receptive at the time of a funeral. So it's also, if you find yourself needing to say something at anybody's funeral, your mother, your father, your sisters, brothers, colleagues, consider having this and offering it to people, because I've found it to be of enormous benefit. People come up afterwards and ask you for a copy of it, and it really it feels like just what they want. Okay, well, I'll go on now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read through this, but in my way, I'll stop and comment as it seems appropriate, and we'll take as long with it as we need. So it starts by addressing the person who's passed as dear friend. Master commented that friendship is the highest form of love, which is actually very interesting, because he said friendship is the only relationship between people that has no element of, I'm not sure he used this word, but it has no element of coercion, and it has no fixed form to it. A husband and a wife, for example, may indeed have a deep and wonderful friendship, but once the marriage vow is taken, once children come, there's also a profound sense of obligation involved. They begin to rely on each other in many practical ways. They've made a joint commitment to raise the children. And so there's a form that the friendship has to fit into. Even between a mother and a child, which is, of course, the most intimate relationship because the child grows literally under the mother's heart, as it is beautifully and poetically stated. But there's also, once the child begins to grow inside the mother's body, it is an automatic process. It's not as if the mother has the free choice. I mean, nowadays people terminate pregnancies, but when the child starts growing, the child will grow as long as it's inside the mother. The mother doesn't choose. The force is there. And once the child is born, again, the child is completely helpless unless the mother takes care of it. None of these need diminish the purity of the love relationship. But Master was commenting that friendship is a relationship of equals, freely chosen. So when all other forms are gone, see, it's also appropriate for a funeral service because all forms are gone. A person may have been your mother, and all of that context of being the mother may have, in fact, made the relationship even more wonderful. But that relationship is based on biology. It's based on the physical facts. And when that physical body dies, those physical facts cease to exist because your mother existed as a divine soul before she was your mother and after she's your mother. It's just that period of time because of the relationship of your physical bodies on this material plane in this particular time. Then you are mother and child. But once the physical is dissolved, what is left is whatever would be there that would be consciously and freely chosen without any coercion. And that's why Swami starts this by addressing the departing soul as dear friend, because now we're erasing all coercion, and it's just what is genuinely true between us, whatever friendship we have or can affirm or aspire to. Dear friend, you who have gone before us have entered a realm which our souls remember, a place of freedom, light, and laughter. We're assuming that the souls that we're doing these ceremonies for have gone to heavenly realms and not to dark realms. But that's what our souls remember. Swamiji said one of the reasons that our community of Ananda has worked so well and has also been so dynamically clear to us, we've not had to work really hard to understand what we're trying to do, as he said, because we've had communities in the astral worlds for many, who knows how long. But we are a community in the astral world that manifests on the physical plane. I've also noticed, this is just interesting, this is how I understand it. People tend to manifest in the material world something that, as well as they're able, something that closely resembles the astral world from which they came, because that's their vibratory signature. When we first moved into the community where we now live, which we have renovated and uplifted, it was astonishing to me. It was a place, one of the reasons we were able to purchase it and move the tenants out is because it was exceedingly transitory. Like almost no one, with just one or two exceptions in 72 units, almost no one had lived in any of these units for more than a couple of years, and most had lived even less. And it was it was dilapidated, the neighbors told us that the police would come on actual calls several times a week. And it did not have a high consciousness. And many of the people who lived here were struggling, just struggling to make it on the material plane. And what was so interesting to us was that the apartments tended to be dark, and the people inside of it tended to have heavy dark curtains, and they tended to keep their curtains closed. And then they tended to decorate inside in dark colors, browns, dark blacks. It was like they didn't want too much light into their places. And so you began to think the places were dark, but it wasn't really. It was that many of the people, and God bless them, that was where they felt comfortable, was just a little bit in the dark. And we came in and we, lightened the curtains and lightened the walls and lightened the rugs and put in skylights in some cases. And all of a sudden, the places became light because that's the astral world that our souls remember. And actually, one should look around one's own environment and ask yourself, what kind of an astral vibration am I creating here? What world am I recreating? And that's why Swami wrote a book about the building of Crystal Hermitage. He called it Space, Light, and Harmony. And it's all about the importance of architecture and the importance of environment, space, light, and harmony. So you who have gone before us, of course, this implies that we're on our way eventually. You've just gotten your ticket early. When the first one among us died of cancer, I think she was only in her 30s. This would have been, it was certainly, if it was into the 80s, it was probably in the early 80s. And she was a feisty girl and kind of a rebel. And I mean, she was very open about her passing. And we were teasing her, that it would be so like you to be the first one to get to the astral world. And she promised that she would, open all the doors and dust our rooms before we got there. Dear friend, you have gone before us, have entered a realm which our souls remember. So we're also saying, I know where you've gone. My soul remembers. Even if I can't see it, I know it's there. When one of my friends, her husband died, people would comfort her by saying, I'm sorry you lost your husband. I think I've repeated this already. She said, he's not lost. I know exactly where he is. She says, he's just not here. And that was an important answer. I haven't lost him. He's just gone before me to a place my soul remembers, a place of freedom, light, and laughter. Then we say, take with you on your journey our blessings and our love. So that's the first thing we say, that our spirit is going with you. We bless you. We love you. We're not angry at you for dying. We're not feeling that you've done something wrong. We bless you on this journey. Just as I was saying before, a loving parent sends their grown child out on their own adventures with blessings and love. And that's exactly what happens when someone dies. They've just gone before us to a place that we remember, but we can't quite get there now. We don't have the right passport. We don't have the right ticket. Take with you on your journey our blessings and our love. And the next sentence is, we shall miss you. And this is it's so sweet, because right away we say, we shall miss you. Why should we pretend? Why should we shine on? Oh, I know, it's all just fine. It isn't. We shall miss you. It's just, how much more clearly can you say that? You have our blessings, but we'll miss you. Okay, honey, have a great trip in Europe, but we'll miss you. Christmas won't be the same without you, but enjoy Paris. We shall miss you. And then, though, the next sentence is, our desire is not to hold you back. And this is the great art of both spiritual life and human life. That you speak the truth, you speak it impersonally, you don't suppress it, you're not ashamed or embarrassed about it. This is just what's true. And then we also affirm, but our desire is not to hold you back. We shall miss you. But we don't want you to change what you're doing just because it also affects us, because we know this is right for you. But our desire is not to hold you back, but only to tell you, friend, and again we affirm that, but only to tell you, friend, we are yours, meaning that we belong together. We'll be separated for a while, but that doesn't mean that what we shared was any less important to either of us, or less real in the sense of being a very important part of our karmic journey. We are yours. Our love and support are ever yours. So Swami then wants to explain, what do we mean by we are yours? Am I your daughter forever? Are you my husband forever? No, our love and support are ever yours. And our prayers for your highest happiness. We shall miss you, but our desire is not to hold you back, but only to tell you, friend, that we are yours. Our love and support are ever yours, and our prayers for your highest happiness. You know, there is this issue which I've mentioned, but it's worth saying again. We don't prove our love by continuing to grieve. And the best way to hold on to someone is not to continue to grieve. And this, it gets complicated in your mind, people's minds. If I don't continue to be unhappy about their absence, somehow I must not have really loved them. But what we're enjoying is we're enjoying, like, well, I mean, just think about it. I'm going to give a very mundane example, but what if someone, puts together a beautiful feast? Let's say it's Christmas or Thanksgiving or just some wonderful event, and a beautiful meal is cooked and the house is decorated and everyone is invited over, and we sit around the great table and we tell stories and we laugh and we have such a wonderful time. The food is ambrosial. The dessert just is the best you've ever had. The coffee at the end is perfect. The weather even cooperates. Everything is exactly as it ought to be. At the end of that, it's not better by saying, okay, let's start over with the first course. It's like it has a natural rhythm. And when the natural rhythm plays itself out, there's this deep satisfaction in the heart. This deep satisfaction in the heart and in the belly, as it were. But it's not made better by just insisting that it can't ever end. Part of what makes it beautiful is it has a natural arc. And so a human life, if we are able to stand back just the tiniest bit and see ourselves in a soul journey, it has a natural arc. So we'll miss you. Oh gosh, what a wonderful Thanksgiving dinner this has been. I can't wait till we're back together again next year. But it had a natural arc, and now it ends. And tears are shed. We can weep as we walk away because it was so moving and it was so beautiful. We'll miss you. We'll miss the camaraderie. We'll miss all being together. But we're not trying to force our will upon that which is beyond our control. But we love you. Our love and prayers and our desire for your highest happiness. I had a friend who believed they were an immigrant family, and because of the parents' work, especially the father, and there were a number of children. It was a largish family, and because of the father's hard work, all his children, all of them, established themselves at a much higher level than he was able to achieve in terms of education and professions and income and security. In other words, he worked hard and did a wonderful thing for his family and was much loved. And then one of his offspring, who was the person that I knew, they loved their father a great deal, but like a year or two later, the person told me how much they still, weep for the absence of their father, and was just sort of telling me, again, as if this was a good thing to be doing. Sometimes I say things I probably shouldn't say, and I don't know in this case whether it was a good or bad thing. And I said, for heaven's sakes, give the poor man a rest. I said, he gave everything to your family. He did a wonderful job. Bless him. Don't show yourself to be continuously unhappy. That's not what he would want for you. At what point, can he lay down his responsibilities and then think what else might be possible for him? But you're continuously wanting to hold him, and even, now think about it. This is a tender-hearted father who gave their whole energy to take care of the children. One of the children continues to weep how is he supposed to relate to that? It puts the departed in a very difficult position because we're demanding that the relationship continue in that coercive mold rather than now we'll be friends. I miss you, but my desire is not to hold you back. I just want to tell you that my love and blessings are always with you and my prayers for your highest happiness. So Swami tells us exactly how we're supposed to relate to this, the human honesty and the divine truth. And then what comes next? We shall meet again. And see, this is the reassuring. We shall meet again. This is a very temporary absence. It looms large in the context of one incarnation. It's barely a heartbeat if you look at the rhythm of eternity. Of course, that's hard for us to see. A man I knew who specialized in hospice work and had many experiences of the other side, so to speak, he had to answer the question. The question came in actually a very touching way, like a daughter would say, I love my mother so much, and you're telling me that she's happy in the astral world. Doesn't she miss me? And that's a real question. Like, this is the same thing. Was what we had between us, was it real or was it not real? If, quote, she can just put it aside so readily. So you have to ask the question, which I've actually addressed greatly, what is it that we really have between us? We have friendship. We're here to help each other. And the word attachment is tossed around a lot in spiritual circles, and it's not clearly understood. But what's happening in that context is, I want things never to change. This is how I like it, and I want it to stay this way. But we don't have the power to assert that. We're just being children, not really looking at our place in creation when we say that. So his answer was interesting. He said, time on the material plane seems to move very slowly. He said, in the astral world, and I couldn't exactly speak to how this works, but time is different. The sense of how long we're separated. And I'm not sure if this gentleman was actually speaking the truth, but when he was saying, he says, your sense of separation is long. In the astral world, the separation lasts about this long. And then he blinked his eyes like that. He said, you feel like you're separated, but you're not. And, we will meet again. And when we meet again, it will be as if no time has passed. Now, the other side of that is the people in the astral world, depending on their level of consciousness, above all, depending on their level of consciousness, they can also be aware of us here, and they can also help us because their love and blessings are also with us, just as our love and blessings are also with them. My friend Paula, who passed away now many years ago, soon after she died, I said to Swamiji, I feel like Paula's helping me a lot. And I said, is she conscious of us? His response was, oh, yes. Just like that, oh, yes. And even all these years later, there are times when I pray to Paula. I don't pray to her as if she was an omnipotent God, but I pray to her in the sense that, Paula, I need you. You're my friend. I know that you understand, and if you were here, you would know how to help me. So I need you to help me. And I have to say, I feel her response. I don't dream about her. I don't see her, but I feel it. Swamiji talks about the time, and he actually puts this in his book. He says, don't only pray for the people who've passed. Swami puts it universally. Don't only pray for the people who've passed. Pray to them. And he says he remembers there was a particular day when it was the anniversary. It was either his mother's birthday or the anniversary of her passing. And he had decided he would dedicate much of that day to praying for his mother. But then I believe he had a kidney stone attack, or he had some kind of extraordinarily all-consuming, painful physical experience. And he couldn't pray to his mother. For his mother, he found himself praying to his mother. And he felt an instant blessing when he did that, because their love and prayers are still with us. And if they're conscious enough, they will be able to help us. Whether we can see them, Whether we can hear them, I don't know. It doesn't always happen that way. But oftentimes we can feel, and we should, just as we're telling our departed ones, believe in my friendship, we also have to believe in the friendship of those who have left us, because it's equally true. Okay, my friends, God bless you.